Hello everyone, we're just going to start in 1 to 2 minutes. I just want to give people a little extra time to join today's webinar. So 3 minutes past the hour, I think we're ready to start now. So good afternoon, everyone, and a huge warm welcome to everyone that's joined today's virtual lunch, where we are going to be discussing how financial decision makers can empower employees remotely and improve company performance. Thank you all so much for taking time out of your day to attend. I do hope that you and your families, friends and colleagues are all doing well during this time. I'm just going to kick off with a little bit of housekeeping. This webcast will play through your speakers. There is no need to dial in. All the additional materials on today's topics can be found in resources. If you do have any tech issues, please first refresh, then try the help widget or do send us a chat. An on-demand recording will be emailed to you within 24 hours. And for the best experience, please use high bandwidth internet connection, close all your other programs and log off any VPNs. So, again, welcome everyone. I am Nikki Hollis, Sales Director at SAP Concur. For over 16 years, I have been working with organizations to help them streamline, automate, and improve a variety of business processes that reduce cost, reduce risk, and provide 360-degree visibility across their organizations. At SAP Concur, we are committed to ensuring that our customers have the insight into employee spend so that they can make better business decisions, comply with legislation, while at the same time making the overall travel expenses and supplier invoice process easier for employees. I am absolutely thrilled today to be joined by the amazingly talented Lindsay Herbert. Lindsay is an innovator and writer and digital transformation expert. She is the author of Digital Transformation. She has led transformation programs with organizations from Shell to the UN to the US, NHS, and her core message relates to successful transformation to being able to spot, adapt, and react to the early signs of change and implementing the technology available as well as new ways of working. Just to run through today's agenda, I'm going to kick off. I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of the employee experience and automation boosting the bottom line. Then I'm going to hand over to Lindsay. She has got some great content and some great stories about how customers have adapted to digital transformation. We're then going to take a little bit of time for some Q&A. Then I'm going to close the session with really looking at how SAP Concur Solutions can empower employees to work remotely and improve your company performance. And we're going to finish on some Q&A and close. Now, please, at any time throughout today's webinar, if you do have any questions at all, please add them to the question section and we will do our best to answer them as we move through. So I want to start today by really looking at the importance of the employee experience to the bottom line. In the research that AMI partners conducted for us last year, we saw that FDM's, financial decision makers, felt employee satisfaction was their biggest overarching business challenge. What it highlighted was that FDMs understand the negative impact unmotivated staff can have on a company performance and the importance of employee satisfaction in attracting and retaining skilled staff. This is especially the case when we look at millennials who expect companies to empower them with robust solutions. They will quickly become frustrated with mundane administrative tasks. And I was listening recently to a HR director from Hayes And she was telling a room full of packed finance leaders and people, if you do not invest in technology to automate, remove the manual processes, cumbersome processes, you will not attract the right talent to your business. And we really just have to look at the numbers here. This is a survey that Gallup found that companies that create exceptional experiences for their employees have 17% higher productivity, 21% higher profitability, and 24% lower staff turnover. And with all this in mind, we really wanted to find out more about the employee experience and how FDMs can make a difference. So we did further commission some research from AMI Partners, and it was a really comprehensive online survey of 504 organisations. They were from Australia, Canada, France, Japan, United Kingdom, and the United States. It also included interviews with key financial decision makers. It also covered businesses of all shapes and sizes, and organisations that currently use automated solutions and those that don't. The results of the survey are published in our latest white paper, Enhance Employee Experience and Boost Bottom Lines with Travel, Expense and Invoice Management Automation, and how financial decision makers in small and medium-sized businesses can impact employee and company performance. And I wanted to share with you today a few highlights from that research. And when we look at this slide, and I do have a little giggle to myself here, the changing workplace dynamics driving the employee experience. So in a report in 2019, the report shared with us, and we learned that 10% of SMB employees work from home full-time, 16% travel 4 to 5 days a month, and 93% of employees travel for work. Now, I'm giggling because right now we're all sat here and we're saying, okay, that number's probably more like 100% are working from home and 0 is traveling. But when we look to the future, really, who knows the impact that the current global health crisis is going to have on these numbers. Me and Joseph from AMI Partners was discussing, he did a webinar for us earlier this week, and he was sharing with us that when he's chatting to businesses right now, they are looking to see that number of work from home employees increase, even when we get back to business as usual, or as close to possible as we may get. Right now, we are talking with many businesses who are really starting to feel the pains and strains of their manual processes. So many businesses are using this time right now to look into automation. In the current situation we find ourselves in, it has definitely increased their desire to adopt more automation. Quite simply, the days, and I'm going to laugh here, when everyone was in the office are long gone, and aren't they just? The whole business, the finance team included, needs processes that work when significant proportion of the workplace isn't in the office. And as I said, businesses all up and down the country right now are finding that paper-based processes that they thought would do right now, we're managed, we can manage this pain. They were telling us a couple of months ago, actually just doesn't work right now. And if it's only just a temporary working world, they're still looking at how right now they can improve their processes. The logistics of putting a manual invoice into a system are proving absolutely impossible when everyone is working remotely. And while business travel might be in lockdown, employees are still submitting expenses. They're claiming for office furniture, IT, and all other things they may need to work from home productively. We've heard many stories of many different finance departments and FDs who have paper-based processes having to self-isolate themselves in offices so they can handle it. And if in the case that signatures are needed for approval, this is going to have a big impact on processing times, perhaps leading to late payments, which is going to affect suppliers who need optimum cash flow at this moment, as well as employees who may have financial concerns of their own. In short, remote working is essential. The good news for finance teams is that expense automation facilitates remote working by putting an end to the paper-based processes so many businesses use right now. Employees are already using mobile devices for everything from email to productivity apps. By adding invoice and expense into the mix, you can create a work from anywhere culture, something that is very, very attractive to the modern workforce. It's perhaps while we're enabling employees to conduct more of their tasks on mobile devices. And as a top business transformation goal according to 56% of UK businesses with less than 1,000 employees. Invoice and expense automation also improves the experience of employees working from home on the go using mobile applications. With the right mobile app, employees can snap a photograph, submit receipts, and not have to go through the hassle of saving receipts, scanning and emailing files. It also empowers managers by giving them the tools to sign off on approvals no matter where they are, reducing the burden of approving piled-up expense reports on their desks. The switch to automation not only facilitates remote working, but it also makes a big difference to the bottom line because it boosts productivity and streamlines your processes. The AMI research showed us that users of SAP Concur Expense see annual savings of £31,000. Now, this is about 30% more than the average T&E automation user. And users of Concur Invoice reported savings of £33,000 a year, which is 25% more than the average savings for all other invoice automation users. Now, what I really love about these kind of cost savings and cash straight to the bottom line is that finance teams are really becoming profit centers for their businesses. And I think what really shocks me, when I talk to team members and finance teams, is lots of finance teams do not see themselves as profit-making centers. And we had this conversation with them. We said, well, how do you impact profit? And, in most cases, these people around the table were sitting like, well we don't, sales, sales controls our profit. No, actually, you are profit-making centers. There are two areas in which businesses can control their profit, and that is more sales, less cost. And I think this is such a powerful message we should be delivering and sharing with organizations, empowering finance teams to become the profit-making centers of their businesses. So right now, I'd like to hand over to Lindsay. As I said, Lindsay is an innovator, writer, digital transformation expert. She is the author of Digital Transformation, and I know you're going to absolutely love her session. Lindsay, over to you.
Thanks so much, Nikki, and welcome to everyone on the call. So we're facing the most unprecedented times. I think we can all agree. And what I definitely don't want to do is talk to you about jargon and buzzwords like digital transformation. Instead, I want to give you some really practical advice and strategies that you can use starting right now to deal with the situation that we're in, but also start making those preparations for future-proofing for the next big disruption that happens to all of us. So I'm going to share with you the title of my talk is Digital Transformation, the Bear in the Room. And the reason it's called the bear in the room is, well, firstly, I'm from Northern Canada, so I happen to know quite a lot about bears, including how to tackle and defend yourself from a bear. I can share those tips in the Q&A if anyone's interested at the end. But the other reason why I call my talk the bear in the room is because one of the biggest problems with innovation is people tend to focus on the wrong problems to solve. And, they don't look for the issues and the challenges that are actually fundamentally stopping the business from operating. And instead, they tackle the elephant in the room. So the elephant in the room is that problem that it drains time, it drains energy, it drains resources. But you know what? If you were to just ignore it, you could kind of still do your business as usual. Now, the reason that innovation programs and digital transformation programs have a tendency to target these elephants in the room is because they're obvious. And they're things like, oh, it'd be nice if we had a more up-to-date website, or it'd be nice if we had a mobile app, or it'd be nice if our customers could do something in a faster way than they're currently doing using some sort of technology channel. And what that means is all this resource gets poured into these elephant in the room type problems, but because they're not fundamental to the reason the business exists, they're not fundamental to fulfilling that core mission of the business. Once the difficulties of innovation start to creep in, once the barriers start to expose themselves, it's really easy for people to lose the energy and the will to want to do these projects. So you end up with something that's kind of half finished, half done. It's okay, maybe it achieves some results, but no one's really wowed by the effect of digital or technology or all the effort that might have gone into solving it. So what do you do instead? you look for the bear in the room, the problem that's going to tear the place apart if you continue to ignore it. And what I'm going to do in this talk is I'm going to take you through some of the problems that other companies have tackled. What were the bears in their rooms and how did they go about tackling it? And I'm going to frame it in a really practical way. And the reason I say practical is because I'm not just someone who writes about digital transformation. There's my book there on the right. I'm also someone who does it for a living. So my day job, when I'm not doing talks like these as an author, my day job is actually an inventor for IBM. And I'm also Chief Innovation Officer for IBM Garage. So the screenshot you're seeing there on the left is me being interviewed on the BBC for one of my inventions. I happened to be standing in a gas station where we were piloting the invention. And boy, do you ever learn the hard rules of how to innovate when you take something out of a nice, pristine, controlled lab and put it into a 24-hour gas station and watch people in the wild interact with it. So from my book, though, I'm going to share with you some of the insights, and this is my Build Innovation Framework, which is featured in the book. I'm not going to go through the whole framework on this call because we don't have the full time to go through all 5, and instead I'm going to focus on 3 of the most important things you can start doing right now to resolve, to tackle some bears, to solve some of the big problems that you're facing. And, I said at the start, this is so important because, this view is what we all can see of our future. We don't really know what's around the corner, but that's okay because, I also said at the start, I didn't want to talk in terms of jargon. So I'm actually going to stop using the word digital transformation because it's one of the worst pieces of jargon out there. And instead, I'm going to talk about it by what it really means, which is to become more adaptive, to become more adaptive to change itself. It's all about being adaptive to change. And how do you do it? Well, that's where the digital part comes in, because you can't adapt to major change without leveraging data, technology, and new ways of working. And so I'm going to focus on some universal rules. I'm going to share with you the 3 most important things you can do next, and I'm going to give you some examples from other companies. Starting with the first universal rule, which is that absolutely everybody feels threatened by change. It's a fundamental truth. And the reason I've got this scruffy young millennial here in the slide is because there's this misconception that young people are somehow better equipped to deal with change. They're less afraid by it. When in actual fact, I'm positive that everyone in your organizations right now, whether they're 23 or whether they're 53, are really genuinely worried about what the future has in store based on every change that's happening currently. Now, the reason why millennials sometimes seem like they're not afraid of change is because they've grown up with an accelerated rate of change of technology than the rest of us, which means they've learned one critical behavior that we can all start to apply in our companies, which is the second universal rule. Success comes from adapting to the small and early signs of change. So a young person might try out an app, they might try out a tool, they might try out a new piece of tech, and if it doesn't serve their needs immediately, they chuck it. They don't give it a second thought. Whereas people in older generations, they have a tendency to blame themselves. If they don't understand a piece of technology or something isn't working quite right for them, instead of blaming the tech or blaming the tool, they think, oh, it's because I'm not techie. I'm not digital enough. I don't know how this works. And so instead of learning how it works, or, instead of doing a different kind of evaluation or trying out different things, they just assume that it's just safer to opt out. It's better just to leave this to the techies and let's just keep doing our business as usual the way we've always done it. And it's so unnecessary and it's so dangerous now that we're facing change at such an accelerated pace. So I'm going to start out with my rules. I've already hinted at the first one, which is that you absolutely have bears lurking everywhere in your organization. So the first thing you need to do is find a problem that's actually worth solving. Now, there is a really great example I'm going to start out with of finding a problem worth solving, and that goes to the Danish Oil and Natural Gas Company. They faced a catastrophic situation starting in 2012, similar to what we're facing right now. For them, it was the plummeting price of natural gas. So over several years, they saw the price of gas plummet by 90%, which essentially meant that if they didn't pivot, if they didn't come up with a new strategy for their business, they weren't going to have a business anymore. That's quite the bear to tackle. So what they did was they looked at, well, firstly, they changed CEOs. They brought in a CEO who was responsible for the transformation at Lego, and they said, we need some fresh perspective. What can we be doing to achieve the mission of our company? And that CEO, he said, well, the mission of the company isn't actually anything to do with oil and natural gas. The mission of the company is energy. You provide energy to people. And you actually have all this expertise in offshore because of offshore oil rigs. So what that ended up starting was a growing and an expansion of offshore wind within Danish oil and natural gas to such an extent that they actually rebranded. They're now called Ørsted, and 93% of their operating profit now comes from offshore wind. So the problem that you tackle can be something really fundamental, like your whole market is collapsing, or it can also be in terms of how you approach what you're doing. So Boehringer Ingelheim, pharmaceutical company, when they were looking for a bear to tackle, they decided that, their purpose, their mission is not just to give people drugs. What their real mission is to promote health. And so they looked at opportunities in technology and decided to run an experiment. And I absolutely love this experiment. They put sensors in pig farms. And the sensors were audio sensors listening to the pigs. Now, why would you want to listen to pigs? Well, if you can hear coughing from pigs, it's an early sign of swine flu. And if you can early diagnose, isolate the population that have been affected, you can not only save the farmer from having to destroy, to slaughter entire groups of livestock, but you can also drastically reduce the cost of treating and even being able to rehabilitate the animals that have contracted the illness. And so by rethinking their mission and deciding, how could we make money? There's still a business, so how can we make money from this, but how can we do it in a way that's not our traditional route of manufacture a drug to treat the disease or the illness? Now, it's not to say that everything to do with finding the bear in the room, though, is about completely changing your focus as a business. Sometimes it's about future-proofing. And that's why I wanted to use this last example here, the Royal Caribbean Cruises. You probably can imagine the dire state of the cruise industry right now as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. Well, fortunately for Royal Caribbean Cruises, starting from about 5 years ago, they began a digital transformation program that was tackling their giant monolithic IT systems, where before you had to have everybody on site. You had everybody working on this big monolith system that did everything. It did bookings and reservations and price bundling. It held customer data. It was the same system that knew whether you were a vegetarian for your dinner preferences or not. Everything was all this millions of lines of code. And they began the process of containerizing it, of looking to where they could outsource, where they could find tools to incorporate, where they could automate, where they could use AI, and basically breaking this entire thing down into chunks and moving things to the cloud so that now, when we're in the serious crisis that we're in, they're actually equipped and able to be agile and nimble. And most importantly, they're not having to get their entire IT teams into a physical office to work on what is essentially the heart and soul of their business and their operating structure. So that's step number one. Step number two, you've got your problem, you've got your worthy problem, you found the bear. You got to remove the barriers to innovation. Now, this is where we start to talk about enablers of transformation, and a really great example of that is DBS Bank. So DBS Bank, 27,000 people, Asian banking group. When they first started their transformation program, they had this vision to become a 27,000 person startup. Now, this was pretty ambitious because locally, for their customers, there was a bit of a nickname going around for DBS, which was damn bloody slow. And the reason why they were called damn bloody slow is because, like a lot of financial institutions, they'd adopted an attitude of, we've always done things in a certain way, and therefore that's the correct way of doing them, and you will learn those ways. So you customers, you will learn the way that we will issue you with banking services. For example, if you applied for a credit card, not only was it a series of paper applications you had to fill in, and then a whole series of things had to be done in terms of the employees handling those paper documents, but it would take up to 30 days just to apply for a credit card and be issued a credit card. And that's assuming that there were no issues or problems or, any kind of holdups, so kind of a minimum of a month. So you can just imagine how badly they were being beaten by new disruptors and new entrants into the finance market. So for DBS, one of the most important things for them was to become a digital business. And how did they do it? Well, you can't be a digital business if people are transcribing things from a written application. You can't be a digital business if your people are spending all of their time dealing in spreadsheets instead of automated tools. Now, the transformation has been remarkable. Now 48% of their customer base are on digital platforms. They're running everything through APIs. They're leveraging every bit of fintech that you could imagine, and they continue to shift more and more of their business onto those digital platforms. A real transformation, but not possible if you don't get rid of those barriers. Another great example also of the banking industry is HSBC. They wanted to work with fintechs as well, all the great startups, leverage some of the new technologies. What they realized, though, is that every time they worked with a startup, a fintech startup, they were accidentally killing them because HSBC have really massive procurement processes and legal departments. And so they would start to work with this startup that has this great new technology that HSBC would want to leverage. And by, a month or 2 months would go by and they'd get all this paperwork and they'd be waiting for responses from the startup, and they'd realize that they'd accidentally used all the resources of the startup, because startup might be just, 5, 10 people. They definitely don't have a finance team, a legal team, etc. And so they were actually causing some of these startups to go bust because of having too much of their time taken up with these processes. So again, part of it came down to automation, but also part of it came down to transforming how they were looking at legal and procurement, coming up with a simplified procurement and legal journey specifically tailored for startups, even offering them tools created by HSBC, but that the startup could use in their dealings with other partners that they might want to be dealing with in the financial sector. And that is how they were able to overcome that barrier. And then the last example I want to share with you is Direct Line Group, because I think there's no better example of barriers that automation can help to resolve as there is in the insurance business. Insurance is essentially people taking numbers, doing something with numbers, and handing them off to another group of people, right? It's a lot of taking information, deciding how we want to address a claim, how we want to set a price, and then issuing that back out to consumers or to customers, other groups. So for Direct Line Group, they had huge ambitions for transforming their customer experience. They couldn't do that unless they freed up the time from their people, and that meant automating all of those processes I've just described. So from having someone fill in an application for getting their insurance, to when someone has a claim and they want to be able to submit that and how that can be assessed, there were so many steps in their processes, and that was what enabled them and freed up their people's time to start looking at truly innovative things. And this is incredibly important because the opportunity for innovation in the insurance sector could not be higher right now because of the escalating number of issues we're all having to deal with as consumers, as businesses, that we need insurance products for. And so the faster we're able to get those products, get those claims resolved, and the greater degree of trust we have in our insurance provider, the more strength that insurance provider has to stand the test of time going forward. So those are the first two steps. What's the last one? The last one has been building up from the other two, and it's the one that I think we all are going to feel the most strongly right now. It's that we have to grow and empower our people. It's really easy to think that when we talk about technology, and especially AI, that the answer is in coming up with some perfect solution, that's a technological solution that will just resolve all of our issues and do all of our work for us, when it couldn't be farther from the truth. And one of the examples I like to use for this reason is Netflix, because Netflix, everyone assumes that Netflix have all these amazing algorithms and that they're using AI to effectively create all the content and decide what we should watch and write all the scripts, and and it's completely false. They use the algorithms, of course, to help people make decisions, but it's a people-based business. In fact, Netflix are one of the biggest hirers of diverse directors and screenwriters, so people from minority backgrounds, women, female directors. Netflix actually has the best reputation for hiring the most people from those diverse backgrounds to do things like create Netflix programming. And this is important because Netflix is a company known for transformation. We know them as the ones that beat Blockbuster by introducing DVDs by mail. And then they brought in streaming. And then, now they're doing their own original content. Well, the only reason they've been able to do all of those amazing feats of transformation is because they're constantly empowering and growing their people to be able to do that next challenge. So much so, in fact, that Netflix now earns 44% of its revenue from original content. That's their new big transformation. But it's not just down to those algorithms and that AI. That is just a complete misconception. So the other part of it, too, is around looking for new directions for your business. And that's why I wanted to talk to you about Ecolab. So Ecolab, they were an industrial cleaning supply, kind of cleaning systems sort of company, and they were looking for what the next big opportunity was going to be. And so their CEO went out and he engaged with customers, with potential customer groups, it's a B2B organization, all around the world, and he found one common bear in the room from all of his customers. They were all saying that their biggest concern was access to water. And whether it was California or India, it didn't matter. Some of the biggest markets and potential for growth markets were saying that their biggest concern was water. And so Ecolab decided that they were going to do one of the biggest merger acquisitions and buy a company that was specialized in water solutions. Now, they had a choice at that point. They could have just bought that company and brought it in and kept it as a separate entity, and all the people who did industrial cleaning as their, the original focus of the company, they could have stayed in their own silo and watched this new water part of the business take off. But Ecolab did not do that. It recognized, like at the very beginning when I was talking about what's your real mission, they realized their real mission is not to sell cleaning supplies. Their real mission is to promote health and safety and well-being to people all over the world through the businesses that offer services to us as consumers. And so for them, it became integral to their mission for the company as a whole to get everybody working on these water initiatives to such an extent that after only a short period of time, 44% of their revenue now comes from water and energy services. And again, that's everybody in the company working and growing together. And the last example I want to share about empowering people is American Cancer Society. Now, you might think of a charity as being, a small nonprofit. Well, just when I spoke to their CIO, when I was doing the interviews for my book, when he had started the American Cancer Society, it was in 2011. At that point, they had 10,000 employees, 900 locations, 3.5 million volunteers who were active volunteers, and 77 million customers. So a massive organization. And it had grown a massive amount of bureaucracy and bloated infrastructure as a result of its size. It had 13 different IT groups, all working in different capacities, all doing different things. And what that meant was for the people who are volunteers and employees and donors and all the people doing fundraising for the American Cancer Society were having a pretty terrible experience when they wanted to do anything when it came to logistics, money, and processes. So just to give an example, at the end of a fundraiser, it's very typical to have hundreds of checks that people have written to you. And what they used to have to do they would call it a bank night, where all the volunteers and employees would sit around and bundle hundreds of checks so that they could go to the bank. They all had to be entered into spreadsheets so that the information could be captured. And you can imagine the room for error that creeped in, the amount of time that was taking up from people. So the CIO set himself a target. He said, I am going to reduce my headcount in my IT group. I'm going to reduce it by 100 people. I'm going to reduce my budget for IT. These are the goals that he set because he recognized that all this bloat wasn't just costing the American Cancer Society money, which meant it was taking money away from cancer research and cancer patients, but also that it was killing the spirits of people who wanted to do things for cancer research and people with cancer. They don't want to sit around dealing with checks and doing data entry. And so the transformation that they did, I mean, yes, there was a lot of automation in terms of internal processes and with finance, but it was also about giving people who wanted to do fundraising activity for the American Cancer Society their own automation tools, so that they could quickly create their own web page for their fundraising site, so that they would be able to take credit card payments with a mobile phone securely at an event that they were doing a fundraiser for in their local community. They'd be able to scan checks with that mobile phone. And if they hadn't done all of this work to free up people's time to invest in the technology needed to handle these processes, nobody would have had the time or the mental headspace to be able to come up with any of these innovation solutions. And this is what's propelling the American Cancer Society going forward to fulfill their real mission, which is, of course, to stop cancer, to win the fight against cancer. So there you have it. Those are the three most important rules, the three most important things that you can start doing right now, starting with find that problem that's actually worth solving. Don't get distracted by elephants. There's a bear somewhere. It's tearing up a place. People might have even gotten to love the bear. They're used to the bear. But if you don't tackle the bear, your innovation project will run out of steam. People will get distracted by other things. There'll be another crisis that will hit us all. So you have to start with the bear. Then you're going to remove your innovation barriers. What has stopped your organization from innovating organically, right? What has stopped these things from just naturally coming to bear? And when I talked about DBS, I mentioned that they wanted to be, DBS Bank, they wanted to be a 27,000 person startup. Well, startups don't have to deal with one important thing: legacy systems, bureaucracy, old processes. So you look at those innovation barriers, and those are the things that you're going to find lurking in your organization that have allowed the bear to thrive. Then you go into number 3. You're going to grow and empower your people, because the more time you can free up, the less admin, the less tedious work they're doing, the more headspace and energy they're going to have to do things that are actually going to further your company's mission instead of just doing the business as usual. And again, this is so important because this is the view we have of the future. We have absolutely no idea what's going to come out of that mist. But the one thing that we do know is that the secret to success is to become adaptive to change itself. That is the key to survival. And you can't do it without leveraging data, technology, and new ways of working. So you can learn something from the millennials. We're all afraid of change, millennials included, but at least you can learn from them the one critical thing, which is to try things out. Try it out, do experiments, see what results you get. And then not only are you going to start to get some great results, but you'll also have an easier time retaining your millennial hires because millennials will absolutely get frustrated and leave an organization when they feel like they're not being allowed to do the thing that feels most natural for them, which is to try out new ways of solving problems. And you want these millennials to stick around. Like this scruffy young guy here, he's Rembrandt. You want young Rembrandt to grow up and give his brilliant ideas to your organization. And again, you do it from adapting to the small and early signs of change. And you run those experiments, you try those things out, but you make sure that those experiments are pointed at that problem that's worth solving. Get the bear out of the room. So thank you so much for your time. And I know we have some time for questions, but I'll hand back over to Nikki. And I hope that you all are doing safe and well as we all deal with the signs of change that, that are bombarding us left and right at this point in time.
Thanks, Lindsay. That was great. And, I love hearing those stories. And I think, what resonates with me, and I think this is something that we think about a lot my sales team do for sure, is the change management piece and people being scared of change. Because in reality, what we do as a business, if I was to ask my sales team, what do we sell? What do we provide? They'd say expense and invoice and travel automation. No, actually, we are selling change. And we really have to, as an organization, realize that actually people don't like change. So when we're speaking to organizations when they're on the beginning of their automation journey, our job is to show them that actually, the current state, the future state, that pain of change is minor compared to the pain of sticking to the norm and doing things that they continue to do. And furthermore, the Netflix story, and I can't help but think, I love that story. We spoke yesterday, Lindsay, and you shared, about Netflix, how they've evolved and adapted. But I just want to say thank you to Netflix for Tiger King. Tiger King throughout lockdown has given me, has given me hours. Now, thank God for their original content, because the hours of entertainment from watching it and the memes and the TikToks has just been fantastic. And I know us as a team definitely at Concur definitely enjoyed many laughs at that. We do have a couple of questions.
Excellent.
Yeah, we do have a couple of questions. So I know time is pushing on, but I think the one that we've had in, here we go, Lindsay. So what are the biggest threats right now for innovation? What are the biggest threats right now that innovation could address?
So I think one of the biggest threats right now in the most immediate sense is employee morale. We are all struggling, and to your point about Tiger King and people with kids at home, what can innovation do? What can technology be doing to help boost morale, keep employees engaged and working together? And a big barrier to that is policies. There'll be policies that are outdated that prevent employees from using modern tools like Slack or different video conferencing or WhatsApp, different social channels. And really right now is the time to be getting rid of, not getting rid of those policies, but revising them, finding ways that people can use tools to collaborate, to keep close, to have touch points, to share a joke and a laugh, do that now as quickly as you can to try to help your employees still be productive and creative in this really difficult time. I think the worst position anyone could find themselves in is feeling isolated, feeling like they're stuck doing their normal desk job, but now they're doing it in a noisy household when their spirits are down and they're not really sure how they're going to be coping with a variety of personal challenges that they might be facing. So get your employees out of those situations, use the tools that are available, let them experiment, let them come up with some of their own ideas, hold contests, things like that. There's so many things that you could be doing to promote wellness and well-being and collaboration amongst your employees, despite the situation we all find ourselves in.
Yeah, definitely. I think as a business, we are, SAP, that is top of mind for us. I'm going to touch on that at the end. Now, I'm going to do some questions at the end now, and I'm going to continue just in the interest of time. We have 15 minutes left, and I do have a bit of content that I want to cover before we close off. So I just want to finish today's session to take a real closer look on, how SAP Concur Solutions can empower employees remotely and improve company performance. So SAP Concur Solutions connect all of your expense, travel, invoice, and spending into one system, providing a single way to manage spend end-to-end, giving you full visibility into spend, the ability to control spend, improve compliance, simplifying the process for everyone. Now, I just want to spend a few minutes discussing some high-level benefits and value from our expense and invoice solutions. First, I just want to take a quick look at invoice. So, as I've shared earlier, as we've discussed, and as we all know who are on the line, speedy invoice management is critical for the accounts payable team. And I think really now more than ever, businesses that are still using manual paper-based processes are feeling significant pain. And with our invoice solution, what you'll gain is speed and efficiency, plus a real new way to monitor and manage spend to maximize your profitability. You'll have the ability to capture invoices quickly and accurately, stay on top of spend, streamline purchase requests and automate approvals, and spot inaccurate duplicate invoices before they get paid. And I just want to spend a little time to delve a little bit deeper on the 3 significant areas here where Concur adds extreme value. That first being capture. So right now, and even before now, if you have a manual invoice process where you are collecting paper invoices, you are having invoices delivered into people's inboxes, into your inboxes, even when you're in the office, right, this is probably a huge issue. You know, you're moving invoices from desk to desk for approval, you're forwarding on emails. Right now, you're going to be suffering even more pain. You know, typically invoices get sent to she'll get sent to finance, but then sometimes they get sent to purchasers. So from our research, we found that actually a third of invoices actually end up in the wrong place in the company. So how does our capture service help that? We have a mailroom service. So all of your invoices are routed directly into Concur. We receive, we open, and we sort. Then we do the document capture piece. So we scan, import the invoice images. And then we use our OCR technology, which scans and puts the data into our Concur invoice application, and that picks up on 8 data points from the invoice. Now, in an ideal world, OCR will be 100% accurate all the time, but we know that's not the case. So we actually have a team of people that validate that data on your behalf, and they physically check 8 data points on every single invoice. So now if you just think about the number of invoices that you produce on a monthly basis, so 100 invoices, that's 800 data points, 1,000 invoices, that's 8,000 data points. You get the message. That is a lot of time that your finance team are spending checking data. We take all of that burden and we do all of that checking on your behalf. And we conducted a study across all of our client base that use OCR and use our audit and validation and capture service, and it is saving them 50 to 75% in reduced processing times, which is a fantastic cost saving. Then we have, once all the correct invoices are in the system, approvals, the approved process is again another biggest challenge. Even before today's current situation, this was one of the biggest challenges the finance team face. Right now, invoices are sat in approvers' inboxes, or you're posting them out to people to approve. You have no idea from a finance team where these are in the process and if they've even been looked at. Without Concur, 28% of staff have concerns of approvals taking too long. So how does the automated invoice workflow help? So what it does is it routes the invoice to the right people at the right time, and it can be based on budget holder, value, or any other specific routing criteria that your company decides. Now, throughout the whole approval process, invoices are fully tracked, and the most important part here is finance have 100% visibility where the invoice is in the approval process. And with our mobile app, approving invoices can be done anywhere, anytime. We have a client, Harrow School. Mobile app is absolutely essential for them. Most of their approvers are teachers. They're in the classroom. They're not sat behind a desk. They're not sat behind a computer. So the ability for them to access and approve their spend on a mobile device was critical for the success of this project. From an IDC report, I think it came back saying 68% time less processing was required for invoices when you're using automated approval workflow. And then from a financing and processing perspective, finance team are not spending hours and hours deduplicating effort, rekeying, scanning, checking, chasing, rekeying, scanning, checking, chasing invoices. This delivers huge value by improved control and efficiencies, giving the finance team time back. One of our clients, ATEC Support, they saved 2.5 hours per day when they automated, and another study by IDC showed that 34% decrease in time spent for the finance team when managing invoice process through SAP Concur. At no point will we be expecting anyone in the finance team to be doing any manual rekeying, coding of invoices. And importantly, they have full visibility. So when a supplier calls chasing up payment, they know the status of that invoice and where it is sat within the system. And then once all the invoices are in the system, you have much better visibility of cash flow liabilities. So you can have better control on your costs, something that is so important right now. And this is quite a scary stat. And when this was shared with me yesterday, I was like, wow, that's quite high. But 56% of finance teams are unable to identify the exact amount of supplier invoice liabilities at any time. And that was before the global current health crisis. I really do wonder or worry what that looks like right now. And now, just quickly, I want to take a look at expense. So SAP Concur Expense simplifies your company's expense process and makes life easier for employees who incur expenses. Our expense solution lets employees capture receipts and submit claims in real time. Automation speeds up processing, payment, and also auditing of expense claims, makes it easier for finance to manage expenses and budgets effectively. And I want to take a quick look at the three personas in a little more detail. So, from a claimant, traveller, or employee submitting expenses, it really couldn't be easier. Now, for those that are on the line listening that don't have an automated solution, I feel your pain. I was actually trying to find a picture to share on one of these slides, actually, which I took about 9 years ago when I worked for this organisation, which didn't use Concur. It was all Excel spreadsheets and photographs and a complete nightmare. And I took this photograph at 1:45 in the morning, and literally I had invoices and expenses all over my office floor, which I'd left for 3 months, which is bad on me. But why did I leave it so long? Because I just couldn't do it on the go. I was traveling all the time. When I wasn't traveling, I was at client sites. When I wasn't at client sites, I was at home or in the office responding to clients. And it really was one of those, I call it a mañana task. Right then, it was a task I would do tomorrow. But quite honestly, it was a cumbersome, painful process, and it took hours. Power, one of our clients, they reported back to us. They're a non-for-profit in London. Their claimants, prior to using Concur, they were spending about 3 or 4 hours doing their expense reports. Now they've reduced it down to 30 minutes. But quite simply, it does this because it builds itself as it travels. So as you're traveling, as you're going out in your car, as you're getting some lunch, you're taking a photograph of your receipt, you're sat on the train, you can quickly and easy take a photograph. Then the OCR technology takes the data from that photograph, puts it into an expense claim, and starts to build your claim on the move throughout the month. It also takes data from card feeds. So if you're using company credit cards, that can be imported directly into the system, into your expense report, e-receipts. If you're using things like Uber will then send an email directly into Concur that will put a copy of the receipt in and put a copy of the trip and create a line item on your expense report. We even have GPS tracking for mileage. So at the end of the month, all we need to do as a claimant is check against policy or just submit the claim. And studies have found that by introducing an automated system, it can reduce expense approvals by up to about 3%. That's of a paper-based process. Now, on the other slide, we looked at the traveller, the spending, the compiling of the expense report. Well, obviously, we've got to check for errors. We provide an additional service, which is a huge value-add service for our client, is the audit service. So our audit service team, a team of people that will check 5 data points before sending it for approval. If it is wrong, if receipts don't match or the information's wrong, they will push it back to the claimant, and then they will have to reapprove it. You know, in a manual paper-based world, that expense claim would have probably reached all the way to finance before any of those mistakes have been tracked. Some of the stats we have from our audit team is that we have a 20% failure rate across customer base. So that's reports that don't pass that we have to pass back. And of that 20%, 63% failed due to receipt mismatch. Also for approvers, if you're approving spend, any out of policy spend is clearly tracked. You can look, you can dig into it, you can see why has this person spent more money, what is the reason for this, and you can approve or deny. And also actually as an employee having it approved, it speeds up this process for people so they can get reimbursed faster. And if an approver is out or busy, we have escalations based on time, further enhancing the employee experience. And from a finance team, we've talked about having this full visibility and controlling to spend, giving finance teams the ability to interrogate data, spot where they can save money, enables them to become profit centers. And I mentioned this earlier, 2 ways that a company can impact profits: sell more stuff, reduce their costs. The AMI research showed us that actually people that used Concur for their expense and automated solutions, a 15% reduction in time spent, which, what does that give us? That gives the finance team the ability to work on the more strategic initiatives, even just more time back for them to work on personal development. And I think it's really easy to think that remote working is something that the IT or HR team needs to take lead on. But right now, financial decision makers can make a big difference. By taking the lead on invoice and expense automation, you really will facilitate the remote working and see massive efficiencies. You know, for people that use, for finance teams that use Concur T&E, 122 hours they get back, and for Concur Invoice, 148 hours. Huge savings. Right now, just 14, which is quite scary, just 14% of UK businesses use cloud and T&E or invoice management software. So make the switch, raise that change, and you'll be putting yourself at a really powerful competitive advantage too. Like Paul Jackson said, he's head of finance for Thames Reach. Accountants generally have a reputation of being very backward looking because that's our role. But just having a system that works and takes advantage of its technology makes a big difference. It puts us on the front foot and gives us self-confidence in standing in the organisation, which we didn't have before. And we can see the difference that we make to businesses, how we facilitate remote working. The first quote we see here, is that very often the drive to facilitate remote working comes from the employees themselves. And the second quote, we can see how employees like the ability to process little often rather than as a one big off task. Remember, the manana task. So quickly, lastly, just before we close, Lindsay touched on this. I'd just like to take this opportunity to mention a few high-level thoughts that we are hearing from customers on how to manage working from home in this current climate. And it's really focusing on 4 areas. Cash flow, right? You're already doing this. People are already looking at this. I read a really great research this week from Bain, and I suggest you take a look at it. And it talks about cash flow, and it talks around creating a central cash war room. So it's basically a warm room approach that enables rapid, real-time decision-making and focuses leadership teams on the most urgent liquidity needs and cash preservation actions. They're talking about creating a 13-week cash flow forecast, and this enables you to have meticulous monitoring on this. Launch divisive actions to reserve cash, control all of your cash outflows. What can you deny? What can you deny? And where should you invest? And that takes us onto the process side. So many organizations now are going to be looking at their processes. How do we operate? How can we streamline? What can we do now to get us through this process? But what can we do longer term? I said earlier, many companies are coming to us and saying, look, we really now have been in the pains. We want to automate. We want to invest. But not just for now, but actually if this is ever to happen again, we need to be, ready to fight this. And 2 areas really, really close to my heart, people and spirit. I'm really lucky. I work for SAP Concur. One of our 2 main core values of the business is people and spirit. But keeping people, communicating well with people right now, the way you communicate with them, how often you communicate them, and be honest with your people. People really need to feel that they've got their arms wrapped around them right now and they're up to date with all the latest news and knowledge that they have within the business. And finally, spirit, keeping morale up. Now, I think everyone's doing this. I'm seeing some really great examples from our clients, and we've got great examples internally. But how do we keep people happy, motivated, and really keen to start their day? We're having huddles here, we're doing quizzes, we're doing exercise, but more importantly, it's the stamina for that spirit. I think when we first kicked off this, we were very, let's get motivated, let's keep everyone's spirits high. Please keep the stamina. I know I too, my team, I'm finding it sometimes a struggle every day to keep there, but do it, because honestly, I think we all need that right now, is to feel that love and warmth and spirit coming from everyone within the business. So we're quickly running out of time, and I do apologise. We do have another couple of questions. So if anyone minds, I am just going to answer a couple of those. I hope that's okay. I think Vicky, our producer, might tell me off, but we'll carry on. So I do have a question here. Okay, so what is the lead time to implementation? So we're a SaaS-based solution. Depending on what solution you're looking to implement, within a couple of weeks of committing to work with Concur, we can have you introduced to an implementation manager and your implementation started. It doesn't take as long as people think. And I think one of the common bits of feedback we have when we're engaged with organizations is, oh, that's actually a little bit easier than I thought it was going to be. It's not resource hungry, it's not labor intensive. And we have done this globally for, thousands and thousands of clients. And we're very well averse to implementing. In fact, we do have for both our products 1-day implementation. So if you are looking to get up and ready quick, we can support that. Another question, I hope that answered your question, by the way. And if anyone does have any further questions, I'm going to share some contact details with you. So someone else has asked, what changes have you noticed over the past month? Well, apart from the fact that I have really bad nails and terrible hair, the other change that I have noticed from businesses is that initially when this all kicked off, so 4 or 5 weeks ago, I think people were like, right, okay, we need to put a hold on everything, all of our discussions. We are just doing our battle plan as a business. And we need to look at where we're going, how we're going to get there, if we're going to get there. But in the last couple of weeks, last 3 weeks in particular, we have seen a huge upturn, business going, right, okay, we've sorted ourselves out, we're in the new norm. How can you help us now get to a position that when we start back, we are ready to go with our solutions, whether that be expense or invoiced. So we did have that period where people sort of, closing their doors, and we were finding it really difficult, and I don't blame them. This is a situation that I don't think any of us would like to find ourselves in. But we are now starting to see the people who are, who are coming through the other side or can see the light, even though it might be distant at the end of the tunnel, reach out to us and ask us how we can help them. I do have another question for Lindsay, if that's okay, Lindsay.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's fantastic. So someone's asked, what are the biggest opportunities that the current situation is presenting?
So I think the biggest opportunity is this is the time to introduce those conversations about automation, digital tools, leveraging technology, putting budget into the virtual world that may have been difficult conversations to have had before. Because when you've got a steady stream of income coming from your traditional sales channels and your traditional lines of business, trying to get people focused on digital opportunities is a challenge. And with everything drying up, all those other routes drying up right now with the crisis, there is a huge amount of interest around every organization, regardless of how traditional and how previously face-to-face they may have been. There's a huge amount of interest now in what can be done. And I think to your point too, Nikki, there's so many misconceptions out there about how long things take and how difficult they might be or how much money you might have to spend to get started. And I think my hot tip I would offer to everyone is that absolutely under no circumstances should you be signing up to any big major contracts and big, huge, lengthy commitments with anyone right now. Instead, it's about experimentation. And I think any modern software technology company is going to already have it in their pricing model, their subscription model, whatever it is, the opportunity to try before you buy or to have a limited term where you're trying things out, where you've got a beta group of users, take advantage of those and use the fact that maybe a lot of people don't have that much to do because their traditional work has been suspended. Get them focused on this instead, and that absolutely is the biggest opportunity.
Yeah, and we have done, yes, I totally agree with all those comments. We have done, from a commercial point of view, and people on the line, who are looking, are thinking about starting their journey or are on their journey. Some of the people I know that have joined today, are looking at this right now. Is as a business, like you said, we are looking to make sure that our sales engagement and the commitment suits the current market. And if you're on the line and you're already engaged, speak to your contacts within Concur and get them to share with you what we're doing, because we're really trying to support our customers right now in being able to start a project, but really mindful of their risk level around longer commitments and how we can help them and make that change without feeling the burden of that decision with the current market. Just I'm going to take one more really quick question. Someone's asked if there are any APIs that exist to push the invoice and expense data into their financial software. 100%. We are finance system agnostic. We have APIs that will connect data. Our solution works pretty much with any finance system that you have. We create the integrations. Data is seamlessly taken from your invoice, from your Concur system into your finance system. There is no rekeying of data. There are many ways that we can transfer that data. So if you do have further questions, who asked that question, please reach out to the team. Right. Thank you, everyone. We've run a little bit over time. I do apologise. I just want to say absolutely huge thank you for everyone for joining. We had a great attendee list. I hope everyone ordered their lunch or is going to order their lunch from Deliveroo. It was a pleasure to have you on. Lindsay, huge thank you. I love the content, some really good food for thought ideas and some good stories shared there. So thank you so much. If anyone on... Oh, you're welcome. No, I loved it. And I love your slides. I said that yesterday. I actually, just before we close, I shared with our sales team yesterday. I was getting all excited. This webinar is going to be awesome. It's all about the bear and the elephant in the room. And everyone was sort of like, what does that mean? They watched this. I do hope they watch this. I do hope they watch this for the context. So, as I said, yeah. Thank you. If anyone has any questions, me and the team here at SAP Concur would love to help you. If you're beginning on your automation journey or you're in the process, please reach out to us. We'll really help you uncover that value of automation within your business. There are our contact details. Please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you very much. I hope that everybody enjoys the sunny weekend. We are blessed. And stay safe. Thank you.